The Pentagon is considering assigning the newest military branch, Space Force, to take the lead in a ramped-up effort to investigate sightings of UFOs after a June report found all but one of 144 UFO incidents could not be explained. The Senate's version of the fiscal 2022 Intelligence Act includes several provisions on UFOs, including long-term plans for tackling the subject and a recommendation for additional funding. This is according to a congressional staffer that told Politico of a classified version of the bill.
But the Space Force isn't so keen on the idea of investigating UFOs, given the media ridicule the branch has received since its inception. Joining us now to discuss is Democratic strategist Jennifer Holdsworth-Karp and Senior Director of Policy at the Conservative Partnership Institute, Rachel Brevard. Jennifer, let me pose this to you. Should this task fall under the Space Force, the newly created branch of the armed forces, to look into UAPs and UFOs, or is it better kept under the Air Force and Navy as it's previously been?
You know, I think it would make logical sense for it to go to the Space Force. I know that the organization received, as you mentioned, a ton of ridicule when it was introduced. I know a lot of members of my party scoffed at the idea, especially because it was introduced and suggested by President Trump. But I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding about what the Space Force is actually designed to do. And I think if we put out more information about that, folks would be less willing to ridicule what the actual mission is. While the UAP and the UFO conversation is an important one, I personally have been having a very hard time wrapping my brain around the information that is coming out regarding this conversation. Of course, my first instinct is to dismiss it and roll my eyes and call it ridiculous and say, we've got a lot of problems here on Earth we need to be focused on. But look, the information flow on this is serious and it's not stopping. In terms of the Space Force itself, there are a number of charges that organization has that America needs to learn more about in terms of protecting Earth from threats. Now, I'm not talking about an invading alien force here, right? I'm talking about asteroids and other things that can come to Earth and be a life-ending event, right? This is something that the Space Force is very specifically focused on. Adding the UAP conversation to their mission, I think, makes a lot of sense if we are talking about Earth protection. Now, I know I'm going to get tons of ridicule from the Twitterati about this conversation, but I sort of outed myself as a space nerd a number of weeks ago on this program, so I don't mind leaning into it. There is so much that we don't know about the universe that Earth exists in that we need to learn to better humanity here on Earth. And that's a conversation that I won't back down from. So I support the mission. I support this particular charge being assigned to the mission. And I think that there is a lot more investigation that needs to happen and needs to be presented to the American people.
And Rachel, I've never heard of any government entity kind of reducing the amount of turf that it covers. So what on Earth and what in space is going on with the Air Force and the Navy here?
I want to find these people and give them a firm shake of the shoulders and be like, what's wrong with you? Who doesn't want to investigate UFOs? Hello. This is the tip of the spear of scientific inquiry, obviously. Like, every kid that wants to be an astronaut ever wants to go because they can meet the aliens, obviously. So I'm not sure what's wrong with these guys. But, I think, like, Jen's point is correct. Like, this is the next phase, I think, of so much, innovation and development and inquiry and investigation. So I don't know who these guys are, but, they got to get it together because America wants to know. If they actually do uncover something here, they're going to be the most famous scientists in America. Why wouldn't you want that?
Well, exactly. And I think that a lot of the discussion around Space Force was, and why we needed to stand it up as an additional branch of the armed forces, is precisely because we need to invest in next generation technologies, space-based missile defense systems, hypersonics, and others that would fall under Space Force's purview. So I'm kind of confused as well why they wouldn't also take on this mission of trying to understand these UAPs that we don't know what they are. Are they enemy technology we're unaware of? Is it, in fact, the aliens? Let's hope so. But it's surprising. Like Ryan said, I've never seen anyone in the Pentagon give up any of their turf. So surprised that this is the case.
Yeah, doesn't really square. And for the skeptics who think that there's some type of cabal within the Air Force or the Navy, or a group of people who are pushing to get the UAP conversation out into the public eye for whatever internal purposes they have inside their own institutions. That's kind of blown up by them then being willing to shake this off, unless it's the leadership of these branches who are frustrated that some of the lower level officers have been successful in getting this conversation kick-started, and they want to go back to a place where they can ignore it. And then if they give it to Space Force, then maybe they don't have to deal with it. Rachel, could that possibly be what's going on?
Yeah, I think, there's so many internal politics here. And also it does occur to me that, just looking through the requirements that we are going to be put on this for reporting and transparency, the level of congressional interest in this area is high. And at least in my own experience from the congressional side of things, you don't see a lot of, the Pentagon really never loves to come to Congress and tell them what's going on. So that could be a deterrent, I suppose, is the fact that they're going to have to come and report frequently to Congress and be subject, to a lot of congressional inquiry and curiosity. Sometimes I think maybe that's a deterrent. But, again, to the point Alyssa made, even take the aliens out of it, right? This is next level technology. This is the sort of preeminent line of defense at a lot of our, upcoming sort of U.S. military force. So why wouldn't you want to be on the tip of that spear? That's just something I will never, never understand.
It is kind of a revealing insight about the Pentagon that the more the public is interested in something they're doing, the less interested they are in doing it.
Right.
Never mind then. Oh, you guys are going to watch us as we do this? Nah.
To my former friends at DOD, I have to agree with Rachel. There's nothing they hate less than getting dragged up to Capitol Hill.
Yeah, sorry that you have to function inside a democracy. And so a top Harvard astronomer is studying UFOs thanks in part to the Pentagon report. He says, if there is something out there, we need to find out. Rachel, Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
We'll have more Rising for you right after this.